Ladies and gentlemen, we now have evidence that Washington, D.C. and Israel were both aware of the Charlie Kirk assassination before it happened. Let's get into it. All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about some pretty damning evidence, in my humble opinion, coming from Baron Coleman and his YouTube channel. We're going to dive into the details in just a moment where he proves that IP addresses out of Washington, D.C., as well as Israel, had shown a keen interest in very specific keyword searches surrounding the Charlie Kirk assassination. Names like Tyler James Robinson, the Losi Center building, Lance the trans lover and boyfriend, the Timpanogos Regional Hospital that Charlie was rushed to after he was shot, as well as the medical examiner for the state of Utah, and almost every surgeon that works at the hospital that Charlie was rushed to. But before we dive into the evidence that Baron presents, I do just want to take a moment to thank every single one of you for being here and let you know if you do want to support the channel, the best way to do so is by joining the Patreon or leaving a super thanks down in the comments below. I'm going to take all the proceeds from these videos and invest it in a ballistic gel dummy so that I can recreate the shot I believe actually happened on September 10th. Also, please visit rangedaybro.com, check out our discounts page, our loadouts page, our merch, sign up for our email list. And lastly, it would mean a lot to me if you liked, commented, subscribed, and shared this video because this information needs to get out to the masses because it is pretty incredible. Before we dive into what he's going to say in this video, I want to show you something very quickly. So he actually has a series of videos on his channel starting from a month ago. This is the video right here we'll be watching together on the channel. It's important to note, hour and 40 minutes, hour and 25 minutes, 2 hours and 3 minutes, okay? I haven't even gotten this far, but just the information I've received in these 3 videos is absolutely incredible. It's pretty damning evidence, and it's also a very telling sign that we're getting close because all of these searches that he performed, if you recreate the searches word for word in Google Trends, as I did myself here, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but all of these results have been scrubbed, so you can't even go ahead and try to recreate these. But let's go ahead and listen to what he has to say for himself.
But it showed up there the evening before the Kirk shooting. So I thought, where's it coming from? Surely not. Where were the 2 places that Thomas Matthew Crooks showed up in a Google trend search before the shooting? Well, there's Washington, D.C. at 11 a.m. the day before the Charlie Kirk shooting. I go back to my notes. Oh, it wasn't just Washington, D.C. I forgot. It was also Huntsville. Surely not. I think to myself, before I even do the search, you know, Baron, if this shows up in Huntsville, I will officially start to panic if this shows up in, oh, there it is. 4 p.m. the day before the Charlie Kirk shooting, Huntsville, Alabama. Tyler James Robinson. Again, I'm not drawing a conclusion. I'm not telling you that somebody worked at a particular place. What I am telling you is somebody searched him in Huntsville. Well, let me drill down not just to the D.C. metro area, but the District of Columbia itself. Here again is where the news broke. Everybody on the planet went and searched Tyler Robinson. But look at that. Look how strong of a signal that is in Washington, D.C. the night before the Charlie Kirk assassination.
So let me take a moment and pause and explain to you folks who aren't from a marketing background what Google Trends is. And so Google Trends was a very simple free tool that Google has had for a very long time. And what it does is it allows you to look up search terms and see the interest and the amount of searches and the regions of searches and get a lot of like basic demographic information off of what people are searching. Now, it doesn't give you name, address, location of who's searching for it, right? It's broadly generalized information. However, as Baron has pointed out in his 8+ hours of footage covering this conversation, this topic, the FBI can go ahead and subpoena Google and ask them for the exact IP addresses that was searching for these terms on these dates and these times because it is very pertinent and relevant information. So it begs the question, why hasn't the FBI done this? Or have they done it and they're just not giving us that information?
The night before the Charlie Kirk assassination in Washington, D.C., in the D.C. metro area, and in Huntsville, you're getting this strong of a signal. Someone is searching the name Tyler James Robinson. Right there, Tyler James Robinson. Well, now this is just bananas, I tell myself. Surely it has to stop here. And I even put my computer down. I closed the clamshell on the MacBook and I thought, should I just stop? You know, there's a difference between what you can do and what you should do.
I've asked myself that question multiple times, but the more pushback I get to stop, the more I want to talk about it because you're not going to silence me. This is America after all. And I think that was the goal of assassinating Charlie Kirk in public, was to get us to stop talking openly. It's not going to happen.
Should I do any more searches? Because at this point I'm getting a little suspicious about where these people, or why these people might have been doing the searches. And again, I will not draw conclusions here. I can give you options. Maybe people work at government agencies, maybe they work at private enterprise, maybe they work for foreign states, maybe they work, who knows why they're doing the searches or who they work for when they're doing the searches. Maybe it's just somebody with a burning desire, 9 o'clock the day before a Charlie Kirk assassination, to look up Tyler James Robinson for no apparent reason. Maybe Maybe.
So I'm going to go ahead and start to scrub through this because there are so many search terms that surround this assassination that actually show evidence in Google Trends. Again, he's not accusing anybody. I'm not accusing anybody either. But there is evidence that somebody in Washington, D.C., Huntsville, Alabama, and or Israel, which we haven't even got to yet, have foreknowledge or have a reason, whatever that reason is. I'm just saying somebody has a reason, unlike anybody else, to have these names in their head and to be searching these names and researching them. Until the assassination, I think 99.99% of Americans in the world had never heard the name Tyler James Robinson. So is it possible that somebody was, going to name their kid Tyler James? They wanted, and their last name's Robinson, and they wanted to see, if there was anybody out there that was already named that? Yeah, but is it extremely coincidental or extremely unlikely, in my opinion, that search happens by happenstance, by coincidence on September 7th, September 8th, September 9th, the days before Charlie Kirk's assassination? I think that's a bit of a stretch. Okay, now you could say it's not true or Google Trends has it wrong. Does it have it wrong for every single search term that we're going to go through today? That's for you guys to decide. I know what my opinion is, and I won't be a coward. I'll just say my opinion is no. I think somebody had foreknowledge. Now, whether or not somebody was using a VPN to frame the FBI or to frame Israel or to deflect the blame from them to these three-letter agencies that we already have, this bad feeling about or this suspicion of, maybe. So here again, we have Lance Twiggs being searched. This is 2022 and 2024. So quite a bit of time before the assassination. Let's see who he works with next. The Losi Center. April 6th through the 12th of 2025, the Losi Center is being researched. This is again in Huntsville, Alabama. Here we have Losi Center in Washington, D.C., September 8th being researched. Pretty peculiar. Again, you could say one of these, like the Tyler James Robinson, is a statistical anomaly or it's coincidence or it's an error. But when you start researching Lance Twiggs, all of these other names, the Losi Center that's been involved. Let's see. Let's keep going here.
So I go and I search George Zinn. You can see here where George Zinn was arrested. There's a little blip on September 10th in the District of Columbia. I'm assuming this is everybody racing to the computer to figure out who is the guy they just arrested. I don't know what this is. Maybe a few days later, people go. But look here, July 20th. Now, this July 20th is going to become very important tonight. The week around July 20th is going to become exceedingly important. And the amount of coincidences that take place between like a week before and a week after July 20th and all that time in between becomes very difficult to disregard. And he was searched, or this term was searched, according to Google, with an IP address originating in the District of Columbia on July 21, 2025. And again, I tell you, keep the anchor date around July 20 in your mind tonight.
That's big. It's important. Keep listening.
Because after I did that, I thought, wonder if anybody Googled the hospital where they took Charlie Kirk. They took him to Timpanogos Regional Hospital. That's there in the district. That's there in Utah. They have, I think, a campus in Orem, Utah. So I go District of Columbia. Here's where, again, on September 10th, 11th, right there, you see the searches for Timpanogos Regional Hospital, people looking for where they took Charlie Kirk. But you'll see this spike of interest in Timpanogos Regional Hospital out of D.C., and then no interest for 2 solid months before the shooting. But again, keep in mind that July 20 anchor date. Here we have a July 16, 2025. And then we have a July 3, and we have a June 28. And if you go out 12 months, you'll notice you even had one back then, and then this all kind of goes out. So something's going on here at the Timpanogos Regional Hospital search. And then right the day before the shooting, somebody in the District of Columbia says, we should really make sure we know what the Timpanogos Regional Hospital is. We really should make sure we know the day before he gets shot. Because after Timpanogos Regional Hospital, I thought, I wonder who the medical examiner is in Utah.
It's a very important person.
I wonder who the medical examiner is in Utah. Because
to this case.
It appears to me, based on everything I've looked at, that Charlie Kirk may not have had an autopsy, which I find shocking. And so I wondered who the medical examiner was there in Utah. And I looked her up. She's a woman named Deidre Amaro. And she was looked up, but this time not in the District of Columbia, but in Israel, which I thought was very strange. June 30th of 2025.
Uh-oh.
In Israel. June 30th, 2025. An IP address originating in Israel. Again, we talked last week about the ways IP addresses can end up somewhere. But Deidre Amaro, the medical examiner there in Utah, somebody with an IP address originating in Israel decided they were very interested in Deidre Amaro. And lest you think I didn't check, the reason I'm not showing you others, go to the District of Columbia, for example, not there. You can even go to Utah and see. Not there. So if it's not in the District of Columbia and it's not in Utah, this is not a very common search, is what I'm pointing out here. Not a very common search at all. But there it was in Israel. So I thought, that's weird. That's weird. So I press on.
It's one way to put it.
Has anyone in the world taken an interest in the old special agent in charge there in Salt Lake City? Yes, July 9th. Remember, about 10 or 11 days before that July 20 date I tell you to keep anchoring on July 9th, somebody looks up the old special agent in charge, Matab Sayed. I even added the middle initial, Matab A. Sayed. Again, Israel. Again, August 10th. Who replaced him? Robert Bowles replaced him. Well, let's look up Robert Bowles. Anybody in the world looking at Robert Bowles? Yeah. Our friends in Israel, or an IP address originating in Israel, September 1st. So they took it. Someone with an IP address originating in Israel took a keen interest in the special agent in charge in Utah, and then when it changed, when that special agent in charge changed, in the weeks leading up to the assassination, they took a keen interest in the new guy.
It's not looking good.
And again, lest you think this is just a name that gets searched all the time, not in D.C., this is the special agent in charge of the Salt Lake City. No one in District of Columbia was interested in it, but Israel took an interest for whatever reason. And who the special agent in charge was?
In Utah, a month before the Kirk assassination.
So let me move on from, we've done George Zenn, we've done Timpanogos Regional Hospital, we've done Deidre Amaro, we've done Bo Mason, we've done November 1098 Lima, we've done Matab Sayed, we've done Matab A. Sayed, we've done Robert Bowles, and we've done Hunter Kozak. I do not want any credit for any of this, but I will say this. There's a reason people with bigger mics don't pick this up. Well, there might be more than one reason, but there's at least one reason they don't pick this up.
Well, here I am.
All right, this one gets a little deep. This one, if you have a 5-point safety harness in your seat, you might want to go ahead and fasten it. You will have full access to your entire seat. You will only need the front edge for this one. This one took a little research.
This is why I love Barron.
I was very curious when the Talking Points USA spokesperson came out and said they had spoken to the surgeon, but didn't give the surgeon's name. So I thought, who's the surgeon? Again, this is the surgeon who looked, according to the Talking Points USA spokesperson, who seems like a nice guy, not knocking him at all. Only doing his job, relaying the message that he was given from the surgeon, just letting the world know about it. Fine with it. This is the guy who said, hey, Charlie's made of steel. This bullet would have normally gone through almost anybody, but Charlie, not Charlie's made of steel. They didn't give the surgeon's name. And again, remember, Deidre Amora, they didn't do an autopsy, I don't think. At least that's the news on the street. They didn't do an autopsy. So I go and I get a list of all the surgeons I can find at the Orem branch of Timpanogos Regional Hospital. Could anyone have looked up any of these people? The first surgeon I could find was a guy named Stephen Nealman.
Uh-oh.
Stephen Nealman. Remember that date, July 20. This is July 18th. This is July 18th. Stephen Nealman, July 18th, 2025. This was out of our friends on the other side of the planet over there. Very curious about the surgeons in Utah, you'll find out. I go to the next one I could find, Robert Patterson. I found a lot, so I added an MD to it. July 23 and 24, Robert Patterson, MD. Again, I just find online a list of surgeons at Timpanogos. I go to the next one, Lee Trotter. Has anyone looked up Lee Trotter? Again, notice the date. This is right in that July 20 area, that July 20 timeline. Someone with an IP address originating in Israel, looking up surgeon Lee Trotter, near about that same July 20 time period. Are there other surgeons in the area? Yeah, as a matter of fact, there is. There's a guy named Lee Patterson. So I look up Lee Patterson. Notice the date, July 19th. Somebody with an IP address originating in Israel in the week of July 20, that week on either side of July 20, was very interested in all the people who practice surgery at Timpanogos Regional Hospital in Orem, Utah. Because there's more. By the way, there's a guy named Brian Gill, probably a very talented surgeon. July 22, IP address originating in Israel. What about Richard Rasmussen? Also searched, July 14th. IP address originating in Israel. Richard Rasmussen. Again, if I'm the state police, if I'm the FBI, I have real concerns that my surgeons are being searched within a very narrow time window, like 7 to 10 days of each other. And I want to know, is it the same IP address looking at all of them? Because I want to know who the hell is so curious about my surgeons in my local hospital. If I'm the FBI, I might ask, is this related to an assassination where they rushed the body there and there was a surgeon that declared Charlie Kirk a Superman and claims he found the bullet and then signed the death certificate and there was no autopsy. And people may have been searching these surgeons. What about William Pugh? He's a fine surgeon, I'm sure. July 30th. Not 10 days after July 20th, but by July 30th, there's still someone over there still searching surgeons. Now, it's possible there are even more surgeons that I couldn't find.
How many names did he just list? Again, if you're one of these people saying it's statistically irrelevant, or this could happen, this is just random, or this is just coincidence, how many names did he just search? And this is just the names of the surgeons at the hospital. If you separate that from all of the other names, Tyler James Robinson, Lance Twiggs, the addresses of all these different places, the Losi Center, and all of the proof that is pointing back to DC and Israel, at what point do you say it's so clearly a conspiracy, allegedly, but also like he's telling them, hey, look into this. Look, you guys need to look into it. They're not going to look into themselves if they're actually involved, allegedly, supposedly, based off this evidence. They're not going to look into it. They're going to call up Google and say, hey, get rid of this shit. You're making us look bad. We had some dummies not using their VPN, not using their firewall, whatever they're supposed to be using their personal computer, or maybe they're at a internet cafe thinking they're being sly. I mean, I don't know. This is, it seems a little too obvious, but again, never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity. And that's what this is to me. This is just guys being dumb, guys thinking they're untouchable, above the law. Your billion-dollar psyops are being dismantled by a dude named Barron in his home office, like with a free application. This This is why I love the internet. And this is why they're going to get rid of the internet. I mean, that's my next conspiracy. They're going to get rid of the internet because we keep calling them on their bullshit and dismantling billion-dollar psyops, allegedly. I mean, it's just, you can't even make this shit up. This is so dumb. This is so clearly your fingerprints all over this, allegedly. Let's continue.
So I can't tell if I got them all. But I do know this. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 surgeons at Timpanogos General Hospital, regional hospital, and they were all searched by an IP address originating in Israel within about a 2-week period, a couple of months before Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
If you were having somebody assassinated, you'd want to know who those surgeons are. You'd want to know them very well.
You know that. I know that much.
Allegedly.
That's a fact, Jack. If it's a VPN, I think the state police or the FBI could go to the VPN and say, whose IP address connected to this? But if it's not a VPN and there's someone in a foreign country searching up all the surgeons in my jurisdiction right before there's a high-profile assassination, I'm very curious what the is going on.
Let's play devil's advocate here for a moment, and let's just say it is a VPN. Somebody's trying to frame the poor Mossad or trying to frame the poor FBI or CIA, and they're using a VPN and strategically placing their VPN, their IP address in these locations to incriminate these folks. That still means somebody had foreknowledge of these events and these names, and somebody clearly is looking these things up to stage it and plan this assassination. And if they weren't involved, which allegedly, I highly doubt, allegedly, then somebody was, and we need to find out who that somebody was, whether it's a private citizen. As Barron goes on to say, I don't care if it was Canada, Russia, Israel, China, or a dude in Ohio or Kentucky or wherever. I don't care who it was. We need to find out who it was, period. Flat out.
Very curious. Like angrily curious what's going on. And I don't care if it was Iran, if it was Russia, if it was China, if it was Afghanistan, if it was New Zealand, if it was Canada. I don't care. I don't care if it's Kansas.
That's right.
I want to know.
We want the truth.
It just so happened that it was the country that it was Israel. But that could have been anybody.
There you have it, guys. And for those of you who are wondering, the American Comeback Tour was actually announced on February 12th of 2025. So again, there's going to be a lot of people, especially the bots and the paid influencers, but mostly fake accounts, in my opinion, paid for by these organizations that are being implicated by this evidence, that are going to come out and try to discredit this in any way, shape, or form. They're going to try to slander myself or anybody else, Barron, anybody who's trying to talk about this. They're going to try to suppress this video. They're going to try to restrict it. They're going to come out in full force, united front, because this is some pretty damning evidence in my opinion. So here you guys can see very clearly on the 12th of February, 2025 is when Turning Point USA announced that they would be having this tour. So you can very clearly see there was a lot of foreknowledge of this event coming up. They had plenty of time to search for these locations, these people who would be involved, and the people that they would need to play ball in order to cover up this grander conspiracy. So for anyone who's claiming that July date or whatever those searches were going on that was before the event had been announced, that's just false. But that's pretty much going to be it for today, guys. I just wanted to show you this. I want to give a big, huge, massive shout out to Barron Coleman for finding this, for putting this information out there, and all the time he took. I highly recommend you guys go check out his channel and subscribe to his channel because the videos he does are very, very well done. All of this information has since been scrubbed, and he even brings that up. He hates to even talk about this because it's going to shine a light on them slipping up in this way. They're not going to continue to slip up in this way. Also, they're going to go back and have Google remove all this information, which they've already done by all the searches that I've tried to attempt with Google Trends myself. But as he mentioned, and I agree with him, this is so important, it needs to be talked about. So even if we remove our ability to ever find this information in the future, we need to capitalize on this being brought to the light today to find the truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk. Now, as always, guys, you know I'm pretty balls deep in this thing. I really appreciate every single one of you guys for supporting me, but also make sure that you're focusing on your family, your mental health, the real world around you, because this internet world is meant to draw your attention. You are the product. You are being sold your attention. So make sure you're giving attention and love to the things that you actually care about, your family, your loved ones, your hobbies, whatever your goals and dreams are. Don't get sucked in too deep to this, guys. If there's anything you take away from this, remember it's not left versus right, it's top versus bottom. The government always wants more power, more control. We cannot give up freedom for the illusion of safety. And with that being said, I love every single one of you guys. Thank you for staying to the end of the video. Christ is king. Drink a lot of water. Stay safe. Stay dangerous. Range day, bro. Out.